So
I'm going to go on the...
No, but this is, no one even knows about this one. There's nobody here.
No, but this is, no one even knows about this one. There's nobody here. No, but this is, no one even knows about this one. There's nobody here.
But now everyone's going to hear that. You're live now.
Okay, I'm going to tell her. Okay, can you hear me now if I have the headphone, Eliana?
Yeah.
You hear it? Okay, I'm going to tell her to... Okay, everyone can hear me now? Okay, je m'excuse, I apologize. I'm sometimes technically deficient. Oh, thank God. Okay. So I'm just going to give 2 minutes a chance for people to join. I don't know what happened and why it wasn't working and why it's working now. But, well, maybe when you hear what I have to say about Halloween, you'll understand that there's evil forces at work and maybe they don't want me talking about Halloween. That's my guess. Hello, Ida. Ça fonctionne. Merci, Daniel. Ernestine, thank you. Mélie, thank you. Lise, merci beaucoup. Nat, thank you so much. That's right, Nat. The enemy doesn't want me to talk. Hello, Joy. I'm just going to give it another minute to give people a chance. I apologize for before, but good shall prevail. We will win. Hi, Martin. Bonsoir. Bonsoir, Amélie. Merci, c'est gentil. Moi aussi, je suis content que je suis ici et que toi et tout le reste sont ici aussi. The enemy doesn't want you to talk. That's right, Nat. The enemy doesn't want me to talk. But I have to be careful because this is YouTube. And one day I will have a private channel sooner rather than later, and I'll be able to do all kinds of stuff. But this gesture says it all to the enemy. Bonsoir tout le monde. Hello, everybody. Je vais commencer. I'm going to start. S'il vous plaît, attendez avant de mettre les questions en français. Je vais répondre en français comme tous mes lives. Okay, the English questions will be answered in English. Please wait until I'm done giving a brief history before you ask the questions. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I'm going to start by giving a brief description of the history of Halloween. Okay, first of all, it was an ancient Celtic festival. The way that it's written, we think that it's actually pronounced Samhain, but it's actually pronounced Samhain. And it was a pagan festival that started, give or take, about 2,000 years ago, and it was to welcome the end of the summer harvest. And they usually would have celebrated it because their new year was November 1st. The Celtic New Year was November 1st, but they did believe that the night before, hence October 31st, what we know as Halloween, the veil or the boundary between the spiritual and physical worlds, more precisely in Celtic tradition, the boundary between those that have passed on and us got a lot smaller and it got blurred. Therefore, it somewhat opened up. And that's why they celebrated it on October 31st. They believed as well that the spirits that came through that boundary would actually help the Druids, which were Celtic priests, to predict the future. Now, part of these celebrations, there were massive bonfires, they wore costumes, okay? When the Romans conquered most of the Celtic territories, they incorporated their own beliefs, systems, and celebrations and meshed it with those of the Celts, such as the holiday called Feralia, which was a Roman Latin holiday that they had the end of October. And what did it celebrate? Surprise, surprise. The dead. Now, Christianity, of course, started to spread after Jesus, right? The church in 1000 AD renamed, now it was Samhain, then it was basically Feralia, and it was renamed All Souls Day. Surprise, surprise. And it was in celebration of the dead, generally celebrated on November the 2nd. Now, later on in America, when European immigrants, okay, went to America, immigrated to America, they brought their own culture and customs regarding Halloween with them. And that's when it eventually became known as the holiday we know it as now, Halloween. Note, All Souls Day was also called All Hallows, All Hallows Eve, and even All Hallows Mass. The early Americans started trick-or-treating. Young women in the early stages of America actually believed that on Halloween, they could either learn or divine the name or the appearance of their husband-to-be, their future husbands that they hadn't met yet. Now, throughout the centuries, spirits, ghosts, and witchcraft were a major theme of Halloween. So many believed the same as the Celts did, that it opened portholes and a boundary between the spirit realm and the physical realm would be opened. At some point, the Celts were sacrificing animals during this holiday. Well, there were some in some cultures throughout the centuries that, shall we say, decided to abandon the sacrifice of animals, and they started to sacrifice children. Specifically, one culture in ancient Ireland, they sacrificed their firstborn child to a god or idol that they called Cram Cruach, and they did so for protection. Now, in many cases, they would even leave a pumpkin, which is where we get the whole idea of pumpkins from, outside their door as a sign that they had already sacrificed a child so that they would be left alone by the gods or the spirits. Note that trick-or-treating, so to speak, originated in England. And of course, they brought that culture when they went to across the pond to what we now know as America. And it was poor people and beggars that were given something called soul cakes, a treat, in exchange for what? Prayers for the family members who died of those who gave them the soul cakes. Okay, so you can see that there's been a consistent history where spirits, souls, the deceased, entities, it's always been a theme going back 2,000 years. Since the beginning of these customs, esoteric practitioners, witches, modern day druids or wizards, devil worshippers, or just regular people thinking they're cool or just wanting to have fun or try something, have always used Halloween, October 31st, specifically midnight, as a means to try to communicate with ghosts, spirits, demons, which is why use of Ouija boards, tarot, pendulums, crystals became very, very common on this day. And I got to tell you that every Halloween, every October 31st, there are, we don't even know how many portholes get opened to the spirit realm because of the practices of what these people are doing. And again, keep in mind, the customs are not exactly the same as ancient Christians did. They're not the same as under the Romans. They're not the same as the Celts started about 2,000 years ago. But they are an extension of it and very, very similar. Apples, for example, the trick-or-treating, pumpkins, costumes. These were all things that go back to well over 1,500 years ago. Let me end it on this interesting note. And then I'm going to tell you why my children will not be celebrating Halloween. And then we're going to start a question and answer period. Anyone who knows me knows I never give what we call in Hebrew kavod, any type of honor to the devil. So I don't mention his name, and he goes by many names. One of them starts with S-A-T. I think we all know who I'm talking about. Well, the fine fellow who started the Church of S-A-T, which, by the way, is huge right now. And as far as so-called religions go, it's actually the one that is spreading the most. More people are joining the Church of the Devil than any other church, synagogue, mosque, house of worship, anywhere. Okay? Well, this guy's name was Anton LaVey. And I'm going to read you a quote. Well, I know it off by heart, so I don't need to read it. Of what he said. Out of his own mouth, he said, "I am happy that Christian parents allow their children to worship the devil at least one night a year, and that's Halloween." So, since I kill demons for a living, I'm not a fan of the devil. The devil's not a fan of me either. And the more he hates me, the more I know God loves me, so I'm okay with that. I don't want my children, nor do they want, to take part in anything that has any association whatsoever and derives from customs that involved sacrifice, whether animal or human, specifically children, babies, firstborn, anything that was used to contact demons or other entities we should not be contacting, anything that has a history of devil worship involved. And that's why when people say, yeah, but Jared, it's just costumes. It's just trick-or-treating. I get it. But just taking part in ceremonies that are reminiscent of devil worship ceremonies or sacrificial ceremonies, and we all know the devil loves his child sacrifice, okay? It's not only forbidden, it's wrong. And it's the same way I explain to people, I don't want to get political, but during the whole sea fiasco that happened over the last few years, I always explain to people, where did they get the whole concept of a mask and 6 feet apart from? Okay? It's very simple. There are a few things that every single devil worship ceremony must have. One of them is a mask. Now, obviously, the government couldn't tell you to start walking around with masks or things that looked like animals, so they just told you wear a medical mask or whatever you can put on your face. And there were some people who put all kinds of things on their face. Shows you how insane and bogus it was. The other thing, I always told people, why 6 feet? If it's that deadly and that dangerous, why not 10? Why not 20 for that matter? Simple. Because aside from wearing a mask in a devil worship ceremony, they stand 6 feet apart. So anyone who willingly stood 6 feet apart while wearing a mask unintentionally took part in a devil worship ceremony. It was the biggest devil worship ceremony in the history of mankind. And that's why my kids will not be celebrating Halloween in any way, shape, or form this year. Because I don't want them to take part in anything that has anything to do with any type of devil worship ceremony. It's that simple. And we can't simply brush it off. Well, but Jared, it's just kids and candy. No. Either you don't care or you care. And if you care, you have to draw a line somewhere. We can't make excuses every time we want to do something that makes us feel good, even if we know that we shouldn't be doing it. Okay? So now that I've given you a little bit of the history the real history of Halloween, once known as all kinds of different names, including Samhain and All Hallows and All Hallows Eve and All Souls Day, and in some cases by the church, All Saints Day. Okay, again, to honor those who have passed. Why don't you ask me your question? C'est le moment maintenant où tu peux demander des questions. Je vais faire un à la fois. I'll answer one at a time. I don't have all the answers. I'm not a Halloween expert. I'm a demon expert because I fight them. So I know about them. I've studied them. And I've been doing this for a long time. So on that, I can answer questions. So please, if anyone has any questions, feel free. And I listen, I've had actual people tell me, yes, well, Jared, is it okay though? You're right. But is it okay if we celebrate Halloween? Do what you want. Do what you want. But I wouldn't. I wouldn't have my kids do it. So why take a chance? So you can do what I'm doing. Because people may ask me, well, what should we do, Jared? Okay? It's very simple. We're going to watch a movie, and not a scary movie either, because again, I don't want to feed into the whole Halloween nonsense. My kids are going to choose a movie that they want to watch. I have a popcorn machine. I'm going to make a ton of popcorn. If they want some candy or chips, I'll get them some, and they can have that. End of story. They don't need to go out in the cold, knocking door to door, and taking part in a devil worship ceremony. Okay, so any questions? Joy says, no question. It explains a lot why my parents never wanted us to celebrate it. Well, Joy, hi, Marie-Christine. I will tell you something. I never met your parents. You, I know. I've never met your parents. But at least on this, I would say that your parents are smart people, and they must have understood something that a lot of people don't. Okay, so now here, Simon is asking a question. I was talking about the sacrifices and that this is bad, but isn't there a lot of sacrifice in the Old Testament? Well, yeah, but Simon, it's not the same thing. There's a big difference. And that's a good question, by the way. And I appreciate you asking it. And I certainly hope you're not comparing sacrifices to the devil for sacrifices for God. But that is absolutely the difference. And the idea of sacrifices, and it wasn't human sacrifice. And first of all, it was only in the time when the temple stood in Jerusalem, the first and the second temple, which is why we as Hebrews don't do any type of sacrifices anymore, because those sacrifices, according to the Old Testament, the Torah, were to be done only in the temple in Jerusalem, the first and the second temple. Only by those who were qualified, yes, by Aaron and his sons, what we call the Kohanim or the Levim. There are two types, okay? And the animal sacrifices had to be prepared a certain way, and it was to spare humans getting punished. And the animals were elevated. In their service, they were elevated to a special place, their version of heaven, so to speak. So it's very, very different. God said, so I don't punish my children, and since I am putting you as kings of the land, and I don't want you being punished, I will accept animal sacrifice to atone for your sins, and I will make sure that they have a special place in the honor of them being sacrificed for you. And those sacrifices, by the way, included incense. They were sacrificed by fire, because fire was very big and still is. Okay, so the idea of the sacrifice was not the same thing, and it was animals. It wasn't children. Nobody in the temple or outside the temple, for that matter, sacrificed any of their children to the devil or to any spirits. Any sacrifice that was made was because God commanded it in the Old Testament, and it was always an animal, and it had to be done a specific way, also so the animal should not suffer, and that the animal would be elevated by the good deed that they did by being sacrificed for the humans. Thank you for the question. Melissa says, many Italians go visit cemeteries to pay a visit to deceased family members on November 1st as they believe the veil. Okay, so should they just not go? Okay, so that's an excellent comment and question, Melissa, and I'll get to you, Martin, in a moment. I see it's highlighted there on the top. My good friend Melissa is helping me, so I'll do hers first. It's not just Italian. There are others who do so, but I know it's very big among Italians to go on November 1st. Again, what's the reason? Well, she said it. Because they believe the veil is thinner, so that it's kind of easier to connect with them. To me, the issue that I have with that is, again, because it goes back to All Souls Day, All Saints Day, which comes from All Hallows Eve, All Hallows, and Samhain, which is where this all originated from. So for me, I understand it's a day after Halloween, but the Celts also originally celebrated their New Year on November 1st, the day after Halloween. So it's all tied in. So is it as bad as taking part in Halloween celebrations and ceremonies? I don't think so, no. Would I be someone that would postpone maybe by a day or maybe go a couple days before Halloween? I would. And I understand that it's tradition. I get it. And that's the problem, is a lot of the things that we do today, which is steeped in sacrifice, devil worship, has become tradition. It has become normalized. The same way, again, I have to be careful what I say on YouTube, the same way certain sexual activities, certain belief systems regarding kids, for example, has become normalized on TV, in movies, on the radio, in magazines, in the school system. So in my opinion, I would wait a couple days. What can we do? Well, Caroline, that's a good question, but I'm not sure what you mean. What can we do? Don't celebrate it. Tell people you know not to celebrate it. If you have young kids that want to celebrate it, so I have young children, don't let them, and explain to them why. That's what we can do. Is if enough people, don't take part in this stuff. And listen, I don't know the exact figure. I marked it down somewhere, but after Christmas and the spending that people do on Christmas, believe it or not, it's not Easter, it's not Thanksgiving. Halloween, more money is spent on Halloween than any other holiday other than Christmas. So it's not easy to convince people not to take part in that. Martin, il pleut à chaque Halloween. Le bon est là-dessus. Yeah, Martin a raison. Souvent, au moins ici au Québec, il y a beaucoup de la pluie sur Halloween. A lot of rain on Halloween. Alors, peut-être c'est Dieu qui dit, hey, va-t'en chez toi. Maybe God is saying, get in your house. Elle a raison. C'est très souvent, au moins pour moi, je me souviens que très souvent, il y a de la pluie sur Halloween. Nat, do you think there's kind of dark spirits floating around over kids' head during the night of Halloween? Absolutely. The portholes are open. So here's the difference, Nat, between Halloween and other days. Because there's dark spirits floating around all the time. Okay? They're all around us. The gates to hell, so to speak, have been open for a long time. Why is it worse on Halloween? Because unlike most nights, you don't have 80% of the children walking around in the dark wearing costumes, taking part in a demon worship ceremony without realizing it. So it's more active. On that night, more and more people open portholes and play with things they shouldn't be playing with. So the amount of demons and evil spirits that are floating around is always going to be a lot more on Halloween. And for example, as we just saw in the things that I said, and in some of the comments and questions, so many cultures look at this time period as the best opportunity to contact or speak to spirits, demons, or whatever it is they want to talk to, past loved ones. So it's always going to be worse on Halloween. That's an excellent question, Nat. Thank you so much. I see there's more questions there. I'm going to wait for the next one to be, thank you. Here's another one. To jump on Caroline's question, if some people open portal for the evil, is there an opposite ritual we can do to close some of them? That's Simon, my friend, this is a fantastic question. There are many in the spirit, those who are in the spirit community or spirit work, mediums, psychics, shamans, this type of stuff, or people who think they're spiritual, who will tell you yes. Unfortunately, when portholes from the spirit realm are opened, when portholes to hell are opened, no amount of sage, crystals, hocus pocus, dancing, chanting, can actually close them. They are open. So there's two things, Simon, that we can do. And the most important one is prayer, because prayer is very powerful. As you know, it can move mountains. Prayer to God directly, God the Father. And to explain and protect those that we love and care about, why they shouldn't take part in this. And those are the two things we can do. And unfortunately, we can't just close these portholes. It's not that easy. In fact, it's almost impossible. The same way when a porthole, when I do exorcisms or I do haunted homes, very often I find portholes, so I can close them. But we're talking about a small porthole inside a home or a porthole inside a person. So in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour max, I can generally close them. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of energy. Now imagine portholes that are massive, miles and miles long, for example, potentially in the sky or in the ground. When someone plays with a Ouija board, every time it's used, it opens another porthole. The only way to stop those portholes from opening is to burn a Ouija board to a crisp. It's kind of hard, for example, to burn something to a crisp or destroy a porthole that's up in the sky or in the ground or in a mountain or a cave, etc., etc., etc. It's almost impossible. When a mirror is a porthole, I can break the mirror and then it stops. But how to break, and on Halloween, I don't know the exact number. Is it hundreds, thousands, or millions of portholes that are open? So it becomes a little bit more, becomes impossible, unfortunately. But that's a great question. Now I have one here from Daniel Thériault. Pour que les enfants n'aient pas l'impression de manquer une fête, certains de mes amis chrétiens laissent les enfants se déguiser dans le personnage du saint de leur choix. Les autres enfants, that's where it stops. Well, c'est une bonne idée, Daniel. Je comprends ce que tu dis, mais encore, le problème, si eux autres se déguisaient en saint de leur choix, mais sur Halloween, c'est la même affaire. Ils sont en train de déguiser comme les autres se déguisaient dans les cérémonies. Puis ils sont en train de le faire sur Halloween. Alors, ils sont quand même en train de faire partie d'une cérémonie qui n'est pas bon. Si eux autres voulaient mettre des costumes habillés comme un saint de leur choix le jour avant, ça, c'est pas aussi pire. Mais de le faire sur Halloween. Puis en plus, il y a beaucoup des saints qui sont des saints de l'Église, mais qui ne sont pas des saints. En s'entend, le diable est assis de la chaise du Vatican depuis à peu près 1500 ans. Alors, il y a beaucoup de saints qui ne sont pas vraiment des saints. Alors, l'idée est bonne, l'intention est bonne, le concept est bon, sauf que d'après moi, eux autres sont bien mieux de le faire 1 ou 2 jours avant, se déguiser. Pas sur Halloween. Puis même à ça, comme je te dis, même s'ils font sur Halloween, mais ils vont trick or treat, ils vont aller avec des bonbons et puis faire partie de toute cette cérémonie, aller porte à porte, sont quand même en train de participer. Et c'est ça le problème. Alors l'idée est bonne, mais ça règle un très, très, très petit peu de la problème. Well, thank you so much for the answer. Well, you're very welcome, Simon. I do my best. It's a lot more complicated. Hi, Jared. Hi, Marie. I'm doing fine. Thank you. Here's a question from my good friend Samantha. Does that include watching movies and shows that revolve around Halloween? I've read before that it's just as bad as celebrating. I listen. That's a great question, Samantha. Grazie. I don't. I don't think it's just as bad. But the problem is, and that's why, for example, on Halloween, when my kids don't go out, they're going to watch a movie, a regular movie, not a scary movie. Never mind, not even a movie about Halloween, not even a scary movie, because very often on Halloween, people watch scary movies. So again, we have to make sure that we're not. So if someone wants to watch movies about Halloween, I don't think it's necessarily as bad as taking part in the whole ceremony, but we're still feeding into it, aren't we? So in that sense, yes, it's a problem because we're still feeding into that whole concept. And the whole thing, for example, of scary movies and most Halloween movies, even though not really scary, at least not to me. I mean, I do exorcism, so not much scares me. But the whole point of Halloween, right? Ghosts and demons and spirits. The whole aspect of it is supposed to be scary. So if we're watching anything related to that, or even just a scary movie on Halloween, it's a problem because we're feeding. This is what everything is energy. Okay, I'm energy. Unless you get close with a high powered microscope, you're not going to see the atoms dancing around. But everything in the universe is energy. Everything is energy. So we're either feeding the energy in a positive way, or it's being fed in a negative way. Now, over the last few years, I learned that science can be full of crap, but there is some general decent science out there. Okay, when it's not corrupted, and it's very very clear that energy cannot stay stagnant. It's always going to got to be moving. Well, it's either moving up or down. It's either being moved in a positive or a negative way. So either we could feed a situation with positivity or negativity. So that's why we have to be very, very careful. Okay, and that's a great question. I have one here by Tyson. Un jeune enfant qui aime vraiment cette fête plus que les autres, peut-il y avoir une certaine attraction astrale? Thank you very much. Tyson, très, très, très bonne question. Et d'après mon expérience, dans mon travail, comme exorciste, quelqu'un qui fait des maisons hantées et qui a eu des batailles avec des milliers, pas des dizaines ou des centaines, mais des milliers de démons. Je vais te dire que oui. Je viens juste te parler d'énergie, hein? Ou on répand la bonne énergie ou la mauvaise énergie. Alors, quelqu'un qui vraiment, vraiment adore Halloween, sûr et certain, c'est un peu comme dans les films Batman. Quand il a besoin de Batman, il met la lumière dans le ciel, puis Batman, il sait que quelqu'un a besoin de lui. Avec quelque chose de même, ou quelqu'un qui joue avec un Ouija, quelqu'un qui joue avec un pendulum ou des cartes de tarot, ou des choses de même, c'est un grand signal comme Batman pour dire aux entités, je suis là. Hein? On attire des choses. Alors, très bonne question. Sûr et certain, un enfant qui adore ça, en s'entend, ce ne sont pas des anges qui vont venir voir les enfants sur Halloween. Alors, c'est l'autre côté. Alors, quelqu'un qui adore ça est quelqu'un qui est vulnérable et qui va attirer les mauvaises entités. 100%. Très bonne question. Merci beaucoup. Ernestine, would praying help to protect the evil to stay away? What can we do? Well, yes. Well, the first step in staying away from evil is not taking part in it. And then the second step is to pray. And again, I like to use to many of my clients who come to see me in my office. It's something I say all the time. I've actually, it's on that side right behind me over there. The last photo was of the Rebbe. The Lubavitcher Rebbe was a very, very, very holy man who did a lot of miracles, very, very holy rabbi. And people used to ask him all the time, how do we stay away from sinning, from committing a sin? Because we're all human, right? We know we're going to sin. And his answer was, if you don't put yourself in a position to sin, you can't sin. So the easiest way to stay away from evil is not to put ourselves in a position where we have to deal with evil best that we can. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but in a case like Halloween, if we don't take part, we're avoiding it. And while at home, we're safe and pray. I mean, I pray every day anyways, day and night, morning, okay? And I suggest to people to do the same, but especially on a night such as that where we know evil is more present, it's absolutely the best time to pray. So that's a very good question. I got another question from my good friend Joy. Greeks don't celebrate Halloween, but they do have Carnival in February, if I remember correctly. This is the same as Halloween. Again, my parents never celebrated it. Well, Joy, I'll be honest with you. I know about what you're talking. I'm not sure that I have the right answer, in the sense that although many of my clients and good friends are Greek, opare, okay, elare, olakala. Unfortunately, I've never celebrated that day. I do believe that it's similar, only in the sense that I believe it has something to do with spirits and maybe those that have passed. However, what I would say, and again, I don't know all the details. I'd have to check with some people who might know a lot more about that. I'm not a specialist on that specific Greek holiday. I would say that it's definitely not as bad as Halloween, just for the fact that Halloween night itself has been known throughout many cultures as being one where portals are open and the veil, the wall between the spiritual and the physical, is a lot thinner, and more things can come through. So that would be the best answer I can give you. I'll listen to a movie on Yeshua on Halloween then. Well, my friend Simon, certainly one way to fight negative stuff is to watch something holy or something good. So if you could watch a movie about Jesus, hey, grab a bag of popcorn and a glass of wine, and before anyone says, well, you shouldn't really drink wine, and let me tell you something. Everyone knows I work with Jesus very closely in my work. Okay, we go back a little while, and I like to remind people, although he only did it once, he did do it, and it was for a wedding, a special occasion where it's supposed to be festive. He changed water into wine, and there is no prohibition in the Old Testament about drinking wine. Okay, in fact, on certain holidays, it's encouraged. On Shabbat, when we do a blessing over holidays and holy days, and on Friday night, the Sabbath, the Shabbat, it's over wine. The prohibition is against getting drunk, because then you may do things that you might not normally do. You may sin when you would not have normally sinned. You're very welcome, Ernest, and thank you for the information. You're welcome. So grab a glass of wine, Simon, watch a movie about Jesus, pray, and you're good to go, my friend. Question from Melissa, the young lady who helps me on my channel because I'm technically disadvantaged. If the kids' school celebrates Halloween and the fact that they trick-or-treating is being done that evening, should parents just keep their kids home? So this is a conversation. That's an excellent question. Thank you for asking it. With 5 kids, I mean, I have some older kids that don't even really care about this stuff anyways, but it's a conversation I did have with the younger kids. I don't necessarily feel my kids should stay home. They can go to school, they can learn, they can be with their friends. It does become a bit more of a problem if they're wearing costumes, because then they're feeding into it. So it may be a little bit harder. I mean, we can always try when need be to make a deal kind of with the kids where we have to give and take a little bit, where we come to a middle ground, or you know what, you wear it to school, but as soon as you get home, it comes off. because, well, it's still light out, it's not dark, and most of the activity happens when it gets dark. Okay. Ideally, I don't think the kids need to stay home on that day, but I do think if the parents can convince them, bribe them, listen, with kids, sometimes you got to do it, to at least not wear their costume when they go to school, I think that would be a great, great, great idea. Thank you for the question. Bonsoir tout le monde. I can't see who that is, but bonsoir à toi aussi. Merci. I have a question from my friend Armand Brien. Lorsque les intentions et les vibrations sont élevées chez certains individus non informés sur cette tradition, qu'arrive-t-il avec eux? Écoute, Normand, c'est une bonne question, but vibration élevée ou pas, si quelqu'un a fait le Halloween, le vibration baisse, ça descend. Puis ils sont en train de prendre partie dans des cérémonies démoniaques sans le savoir. Alors, en s'entend, ils ne sont pas informés, mais quand même, et je sais que tu connais ce que je vais dire, cette expression-là, le cheminement à l'enfer a été pavé avec des bonnes intentions. Alors, sans savoir, même si c'est quelqu'un de bon, quand même sont en train de rentrer dans des célébrations qui sont démoniaques, qui sont mal, qui sont mauvais. Alors, même si eux autres ont des très hautes, comme tu dis, vibrations, du monde croyant en Dieu lui-même, leur vibration baisse quand il prend partie de ces choses-là. Et c'est ça le problème. C'est une très bonne question. Merci, Normand. I see a few more there. Okay, wine, but being too alcoolisé could be dangerous. But Nat, if you heard what I said, and I know you did because you're obviously paying attention and you're a free thinker, like your name says, specifically why I said the prohibition in the Torah in the Old Testament is about getting drunk. Wine is okay, but not to the point of intoxication. So yes, I said that. You were agreeing with me. Merci. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hello, Jared. Hello à toi, Caro. Bonsoir. Bonsoir. Somebody else. Let me see the next question here. And then I know there's someone who has two questions there. I'm sure it's going to hit the top soon enough. If we were exposed to these celebrations when we were kids, could it affect us still in our adult years now? And if so, God forgave us for not. Well, of course, God will forgive you, Marie-Christine. That's a wonderful question. Look, we all sin. What is, for those of you that are Christian, you know, what did Jesus say? He said, let those who are without sin cast the first stone. We all sin. Now, Jesus being a Hebrew, okay, and we go back to the Old Testament, we have a concept in Hebrew called teshuvah, means repentance, going back to God. We sin, we feel bad about it, and we make changes. God forgives us. That's how it works. So in answer to your question, as a kid, I also took part in Halloween. In fact, I remember times maybe I was 11, 12, 13. Once it got dark, people started closing the houses. I used to go with a garbage bag and it would be full because they would just empty everything in so they could shut off their lights. I mean, I had pillowcases full of candy sometimes. Okay. I wasn't as thin and in shape back then as I am now. So that's one of the reasons, by the way, even though I played sports. The point being, Marie-Christine, is that God will forgive us knowing that we make mistakes, as long as we have a sincere desire to repent, to apologize, and to change. Someone who really doesn't feel bad after sinning, doesn't want to stop sinning, or doesn't want to change their behavior, has no intention of it, it won't be forgiven. So for anyone who's worried about, things we didn't know, we were kids, or even as adults, I wasn't aware, Jared, I didn't know what I was doing was wrong. Okay, you're human. We all make mistakes. We all sin. We learn. We grow. We ask God for forgiveness. We do it in a sincere way. We show him that we're making a sincere effort to change. And it says in the Old Testament, it says in all the Kabbalistic writings, it says clearly in all the Hebrew writings, Talmud, Torah, Mishnah, go down the list, it doesn't matter. God will forgive you, and he does. So don't worry about that. And thank you for the question. Next, le diable, c'est une entité comme Dieu ou des mauvaises âmes comme Dieu. Est-ce que c'est une énergie ou un groupe d'âmes ascensionnées, un peu mêlées? Pas sûr comment répondre à ça, Martin. Sont tous des entités, viennent tous du monde spirituel. Oublie pas que le monde spirituel a été créé avant le monde physique. Okay? Le monde physique était le dernier pour être créé. Okay? Le diable n'est pas comme Dieu. Ça, c'est en premier. Pour leur mal, ils considèrent le diable comme un Dieu ou comparable à Dieu, mais Dieu existait avant même création. C'est lui qui a créé le diable. Mais dans ce sens-là, oui, ce sont des mauvaises âmes, mais plus ce sont des démons qui sont créés, sont des enfants, des anges déchus et des humains. Il y a toutes sortes qui sont mêlées. C'est beaucoup plus compliqué. Je ne vais pas aller trop maintenant parce qu'on discute Halloween, mais je ne veux pas aller trop dans des explications compliquées, mais juste pour que le monde comprenne que c'est beaucoup plus compliqué, ce n'est pas juste noir et blanc. Il y a 10 races des anges. Et dans ces races-là, il y a des différents niveaux dans chacun. Même chose pour le mal. Il y a beaucoup des entités qui sont mal, des différentes races des mauvaises entités. Il y a certaines entités où il y a le bon et le mauvais. Alors, c'est très, très compliqué. Alors, oui, c'est très, très mêlé, pour utiliser ton expression. Quenouille. Peut-être tu manges des nouilles, c'était un joke. J'ai 2 questions. Durant un live avec Jeff Benoit, tu as mentionné que la méditation ne devait pas être pratiquée. Pourquoi? Que penses-tu de la médiumnité? Pas le moment pour ça, mon ami. On discute Halloween, ce sont des bonnes questions. Tu peux le mettre comme commentaire après. Puis je vais le répondre un petit peu. J'ai fait déjà plusieurs entrevues où j'ai parlé de ça. Médiumnité, c'est un peu plus compliqué. Ça dépend de la personne qui le fait, les raisons que c'est fait, puis le niveau spirituel de la personne. C'est très, très, très compliqué. Mais je vais faire une autre live. Puis celui-là, c'est sûr, ça peut durer même 2 heures à un moment donné, où je vais discuter mon opinion de ce que j'ai dit avec Jeff Benoit, avec le Reiki, le tarot, des autres traitements énergétiques, ceux qui pratiquent la médiumnité ou la clairvoyance, moi aussi. J'aime pas les noms, mais je fais de la médiumnité, je parle à ceux qui ont passé. Je suis un clairvoyant, je vois des visions pour le futur. Mais encore, ça dépend de qui, quelle raison. Même l'Ancien Testament parle de ça. Il y a ceux qui sont supposés de faire ça, puis ceux qui ne sont pas supposés de faire ça, puis c'est une très, très, très petite minorité. Ceux qui ont une âme pure, qui ont une croyance en Dieu extrême, une foi en Dieu extrême, d'être prêt à mourir pour Dieu. En plus, c'est quelqu'un qui est supposé de connaître avec un minimum le Torah, l'Ancien Testament en hébreu original. Puis, il y a moins de 10 millions qui parlent hébreu dans le monde. OK? Alors, c'est très, très, très difficile. Alors, je vais faire un live. C'est une bonne question, mais maintenant, on discute le Halloween. Mais marque la question, s'il vous plaît, dans les commentaires. Puis, je vais faire un live assez bientôt dans le mois de novembre, spécifiquement sur ça. OK? Merci pour la question. Simon, you mentioned tarot a couple times. It sounds a bit like Torah, but I've heard tarot could be a bit like an introduction to the Hebrew alphabet. Was I misled? Well, it has nothing to do with Torah, other than the Torah actually warns against it. That's the only thing that tarot has to do with it. Now, are you correct in saying that it's induction to the Hebrew alphabet? No, but yes, and let me explain that. And I'm going to make this brief just because this is a conversation about Halloween. I will discuss this. So again, Simon, put it in the comments, please, so I can discuss it in the live that I will do specifically about the New Age and esoteric practices in general and why I warn about it. So I have a chapter in my book, Jared Heaven's Messenger, which you can find on Amazon, by the way. Sorry, I'm going to plug it since I'm talking about it. After 6 years, I still have a 5-star review internationally for my book, and I have a chapter dedicated to the dangers of the New Age movement and esoteric practices in general. But tarot cards obviously came way after the Torah. The Torah we've had for about 3,800 years. Okay? Tarot hasn't existed even half that long. Tarot uses certain esoteric terminology and practices that existed way before, and God used the Hebrew letters to create creation. Kabbalah speaks very much about that. And people who play with tarot like to believe that they actually know some type of Torah. I'm not saying you, but people in general know about Torah or about Kabbalah. Trust me, they don't. I study Kabbalah very, very heavily. Most people, after reading one page, would go insane or just decide, hey, no way, not for me. Okay? So tarot will use certain aspects that they will take about Hebrew letters to make it sound more authentic. There is nothing that tarot really has to do with Torah. But thank you for the question. Again, mark it in the comments. I will discuss that in a live where I go over that, okay? And yes, I see there, I wasn't me who marked it, but my friend Melissa. You can go to jaredheavensmessenger.com to order my book, and it's actually very cheap. Thank you. So again, mark that in the comments. Good question. I will discuss it at some point. Est-ce que le temps de Halloween, tu as à faire plus d'exorcisme et que le diable est plus présent? Oh, très bonne question, Caro. Ben, je peux pas dire si je fais plus d'exorcisme le temps de Halloween, dans le sens que je fais maximum vraiment 1 par jour, spécialement des exorcismes qui sont durs ou difficiles, qui prennent beaucoup de temps, beaucoup d'énergie. Alors, c'est dur de vraiment dire si je fais plus d'exercices ce temps-là. Maintenant, je suis très occupé. Je fais toutes les semaines, je fais des exercices. Mais, est-ce que le diable est plus présent? Oui. Est-ce que les mauvaises forces que le diable contrôle sont plus présentes sur Halloween, Caro? Oui. Alors, il y a beaucoup plus de démons, beaucoup plus de mauvais esprits. Est-ce que je peux dire qu'il y a peut-être plus de monde qui sont possédés sur Halloween que peut-être sur d'autres journées? 100%. 100%, ça je peux te dire. Alors, même si Halloween, par exemple, cet Halloween, je vais être avec mon enfant, j'aime ça le popcorn. Avec mon popcorn, je ne vais pas travailler le 31 octobre. Alors, je ne sais pas s'il y aura plus d'exorcismes à faire parce que je ne travaille pas, mais certainement, il y a beaucoup plus de monde qui sont possédés sur Halloween. Ça, c'est sûr et certain, Caro. Merci pour la question. Mais the book is excellent, by the way. Well, thank you very much. I'm not a known author in that regard. I'm not a patient person. Joy says also, I read it, love the book. Thank you, Joy. I very much appreciate it. I really do, sincerely from the heart. Thank you for the wonderful comments. But I wrote it to try to educate people and just kind of give people a perspective, a little bit who I am, where I come from, and how I got to this point. Marie-Christine says, excellent book. Again, thank you very much. It's very, very touching. I'm humble, so it's very, very touching. Thank you very much. Are Halloween decorations not good? Well, again, it goes back to the same concept as costumes. Decorations themselves are not evil. Costumes themselves are not evil. The concept of using them on Halloween is where it becomes a problem, because we're mimicking, so to speak, we're copying what was done throughout history on this day, going all the way back to the Celtic tradition of Samhain, where they wore costumes and there were decorations. Some of the masks that they wore were animal heads. There were bonfires. Okay? So the problem, again, is not the costume. It's the fact of when it's being worn. It's the same thing with decorations, putting up a decoration. I mean, it's not good. I'm not a fan of Halloween decorations. Personally, I would put up holy stuff. But if someone is going to put up decorations, put them up and take them down the day before Halloween, just so it's not being used specifically on Halloween. And I think that's the best way that I can say that. Okay. And it's the same way, by the way, since it came up. The concept of, as they said in French, médiumnité, or being a medium, or even a tarot card in itself, is not evil. The concept of how it can be used, by who it can be used, can be bad, and the consequences, 99% of the time, can be bad. So it's not necessarily the same way money can be used for good or bad, right? So that's what it is. Simon, I'm impressed by all the good questions and discussion. Well, thank you, Simon. My lives, my videos can only be as good as the people that are sharing it with me, the people that are taking part in it. So yes, you're absolutely right. Wonderful crowd, fantastic questions, good feedback, positive energy. So yeah, it's this live is good because of you people that are here with me and taking part in it and caring to do so. So thank you. I love your bilingual discussion concept. Well, thank you. Quelqu'un qui dit pour ceux qui sont francophones ici, qu'il adore ça, mon idée de répondre dans les questions dans la langue c'est posée. J'aimerais faire un live ou une vidéo moitié anglais, moitié français. C'est impossible. Je n'ai pas le temps ni l'énergie. Je parle aussi espagnol. Je pourrais faire un espagnol, un couple de mots en anglais, un peu en hébreu, un peu portugais, mais c'est dommage, je peux pas, mais au moins je peux répondre aux questions en français. So yes, I'd love to do this in different languages. I just don't have the time or the energy, but I feel the least I can do is to answer questions in the language that it was asked. So I have a lot of clients and people that follow me who are English, beaucoup de clients et des clients qui sont francophones. Alors, je fais mon mieux pour essayer d'accommoder tout le monde, ça c'est sûr. Mr. Sharifou, bonjour mon ami. Salut Jared. Est-ce que l'énergie commence à augmenter à partir de la nouvelle lune jusqu'à la journée du 31 Halloween ou c'est vraiment la journée seulement? Ouh, ça c'est une bonne question, Mr. Sharifou, mais ça ne me surprend pas avec toi, mon chum. Tu es toujours en train de penser. Je dirais qu'en premier, puis je dois faire attention comment je réponds à ça dans le sens que les planètes sont très importantes dans la création. Dans le Kabbale, on explique que les planètes ont des énergies, même des intelligences spécifiques à eux. Et que l'astrologie peut jouer un rôle dans la vie, sauf il y a une très fine ligne, et dans l'Ancien Testament, ça explique très bien qu'on doit faire très attention de ne pas donner trop d'attention aux planètes ou astrologie parce que c'est une forme d'idolâtrie. OK? C'est une forme d'idolâtrie.
Idolâtrie.
Mais, quelqu'un vient de dire quelque chose, je n'ai pas entendu, excuse. Mais la lune, quand c'est une nouvelle mois, okay, une nouvelle lune, une lune complète, un full moon comme on dit, l'énergie est plus forte. 100%. Alors oui, ça commence là, pas le mal, mais l'énergie en général commence à être plus fort. Et on s'entend que sur le 31, c'est le fin dans le sens que ça monte l'énergie. Puis le 31, boum, c'est le plus fort. Et le problème, c'est que le 31, il y a beaucoup plus de mauvaise énergie que positive. Avec la lune, c'est positif, ça vient de Dieu. Et l'énergie augmente. Mais sur Halloween, l'énergie est tellement mauvaise, tellement négative que ça utilise la force de cette énergie puissance pour le mal. Et c'est ça le problème, M. Sharifou. Très bonne question, mon ami. Merci. Je pensais que le démon n'existait pas avant de te connaître. Je suis mêlé. Ben, Martin, écoute, je comprends. Et on a une expression en anglais, je le sais à cause que j'ai beaucoup de clients francophones. Beaucoup de monde qui me suit qui sont francophones. Je sais que ça existe aussi en français, peut-être pas dans la manière que je vais le dire parce que je suis anglophone, mais notre expression en anglais est ça. La meilleure menterie que le diable a créée, c'est de faire croire qu'il n'existait pas. Maintenant, il s'en fout. C'est dans notre face, c'est direct dans notre face, partout, dans les écoles, dans les rues, dans les films, dans les chansons, dans le média, dans le gouvernement. Les signes, c'est partout, c'est direct dans notre face, ils rient de nous. Parce qu'on est dans la dernière bataille. OK? J'ai fait déjà plusieurs entrevues puis vidéos où j'ai parlé de ça. Alors, c'est pas ta faute. Maintenant, tu le sais. Je suis content que maintenant tu es au courant. Mais ça fait longtemps que le diable travaille fort sur ça, de faire croire qu'il n'existait pas. Et même dans le nouvel âge, et comme je dis, je vais faire un live assez dans le prochain mois, peut-être en 3 ou 4 lives sur le nouvel âge puis les dangers. Il y a beaucoup dans le nouvel âge qui me disent « Ah, ça n'existe pas le mal. » Le démon n'existe pas, le mal n'existe pas, tout est l'amour. Uh-huh. Le diable a travaillé très fort sur ça. Merci pour le commentaire, Martin. The haunted houses on Halloween, do they open portholes? Elena, yes, they do, absolutely, for several reasons. God only knows what type of entities and demons are hiding in haunted homes. Okay? That's number one. And I realize you're not talking about actual homes that have things flying around, like when I do haunted homes to get rid of entities. You're talking about all the haunted homes that they create on Halloween so people can go and see cool stuff and freaky stuff and get scared. The fact that people are going in these homes and being entertained and getting excited, children getting scared, which is the whole concept of a haunted house, right? That people create is to scare people. It's opening portholes. It's absolutely opening portholes, and it's making people susceptible and vulnerable to being possessed. So it's for the same reason why I tell people don't even watch a scary movie on Halloween. Don't feed into the energy. So those of you who have kids, please, not only they shouldn't be celebrating Halloween, don't take them to a haunted house. And by God, if you can't control yourself or you can't control your kids and you absolutely want to take them to a haunted house, please do not do it on Halloween. Please do not do it on Halloween. If you need to make a compromise, that was the word I was looking for before and I couldn't find it. If you need to make a compromise, fine. Just make sure none of this stuff is done on Halloween. You want to take them to a haunted house? It's not good. I don't suggest it. Please don't do it on Halloween. You want them to wear costumes? Again, I'm not a fan. But please, at least not let it be on Halloween. So if you need to make a compromise, at least not on Halloween. Thank you for the question. Caro, j'aimerais bien l'entendre parler hébreu. Ben, c'est pas le moment maintenant, Caro, merci beaucoup. C'est pas le moment pour moi de bust out un rhyme en hébreu, par exemple. Mais peut-être une autre fois, je dirai des phrases en hébreu pour toi. Merci. D'autres questions? Any other questions? Peut-être il y aura des autres questions. Quelqu'un dit les sous-titres apparaissent selon la langue parlée, mais pour nos autres vidéos de la semaine, nous mettons la traduction en sous-titres. That's right. Thank you. In case there's no more questions and it's already over an hour, a few things I want to say. Please share this. A lot of you are saying this is great info. You're informed. You know a lot of people that have kids. Share this video on your walls. Share it on Instagram, share it on YouTube, share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter. Share it to your family members, share it to your friends, share it especially to people that have children. Furthermore, please, if you haven't already subscribed, I know there's a lot of you that will watch this, either we're watching it live or we'll watch it after, as we say in French, en rediffusion. If you're not subscribed, please do so and turn on the notification bell so you can be notified. Very important. I know a lot of you haven't done it yet. Click that bell, turn on the notification bell. Okay? So I think there's maybe one more. I'll answer one more question. I never go to those or celebrate. Thank you so much for answering my question, Elena. God bless you. It's my pleasure. You love your lives. I love the fact that you love my lives. Thank you so much, and God bless you. So, thank you, everyone. Je pensais que le mal était l'ignorance du bien. Je te crois maintenant, Martine. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Martine. On apprend tous. Écoute, même moi, tu demandes à ma femme, elle va te dire, je suis en train de lire tous les jours. J'étudie le Torah, j'étudie le Kabbalah, j'étudie, j'apprends. C'est tout ce qu'on peut faire. Alors, Jonathan, le mal existe, c'est sûr, certain, ça existe. Jared has to go. Je m'en vais. Merci beaucoup pour être là, tout le monde. Thank you so much, everyone, for being there. Please like, share, comment, and check out the other videos. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde. Que Dieu vous bénisse. God bless you all. Thank you so much. Peace.